Al, you have more world championship rings than just about anyone.
I
Explain explain to us how you got those rings.
well, first of all, I was fortunate to have some good mentors when I was young, starting with my family and coaches, and then I got some opportunities. And early in my career, I met people like you that really opened up a lot of new avenues that weren't being done in the strength and conditioning field. When I got into it, it was basically lifting weights, and we did some Olympic lifts, and we did some sprinting. Our Olympic lifts weren't very good. And then I went to Moreau High School, and after I was at Casa Robley, and out in the Sacramento area, and I met you, and we started integrating those things, and you when you gave me something, that opened another door to someone else, to someone else, to someone else, and and I always knew there was a better way to train and do things better than I did. It's like all of us when we start our profession, we realize how little we know, not how much we know, and so I got opportunities, and we had some success at Moreau, which I owe a great deal to all those kids. I mean, none of this would have happened without the kids I had at Casa Robley when I was an assistant, and then definitely the kids at Moreau High School. Those 6 years there were the best years of my coaching career, and their efforts, were really significant. And then I had several different coaching opportunities in college, and then Bill Walsh gave me the opportunity to go to the 49ers. But it was basically I wanted to learn and get better. I was never satisfied with what I was doing, and I'm still doing that every time I do a talk. So,
That's right.
the most important thing, Don, I was with teams that had good players. That's you don't I always said strength and conditioning coaches are kind of like caddies. If you caddy for Tiger Woods, everybody knows who you are. And if you're caddying for a guy that's finishing in the top 100 or the top 50, no one's going to know who you are. It starts with Montana to Clark.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, Dwight passed away this year, and Keith Barnhorst. And then I was fortunate, you and I started Creative Sports Technology. We got involved in making a computer timing device. And I don't know if you're aware, I think I've talked to you, they call it the Reactive Strength Index. When the early 80s, when we were testing 18-inch in-depth jumps and took the time and divided in the distance, we knew the number, the shorter the time, the higher the jump was great. We just didn't give it a name. And then the Australian Sports Institute came up with that term in the early 90s. So you get to meet people like that. And then when I was with the Niners, as you know, we brought people in. And I brought people at Moreau High School. I brought in Carl Miller, who was a United States weightlifting coach when we did not go to the Olympics in 1980. I brought in Russ Nip. And from there, then I went to 49ers. We brought in a number of different people. And then when we started our business, we kept growing. And then I went to Chicago with the White Sox and the Bulls, and I had a budget of about 18 to 20,000 every year just to bring people in. So I brought in. That's when I got to know Charlie Francis well, the great sprint coach. I had him in many times, and he was just brilliant. And he wasn't going to tell you exactly how to do it. But he gave you enough information, and he was based on good, sound principle, and that made a big difference. And then spent a lot of time with Carmelo Bosco. I mean, I knew Johnny Garhammer and Mike Stone long before that. My friend Jim Schmidt right up there at the old Sports Palace was a real help when I was at Moreau. So you get exposed to, and I know I'm going to forget a bunch of people. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. And then when I was at the Bulls, you really exposed me to a guy that had a great impact on me, and Rob Panarella. So by surrounding, I have a saying: don't be the sum of one. If you think you're the only one that knows anything, you're never going to go anywhere. But if you realize what you don't know and aren't afraid to ask and let your ego put it aside and meet all these people and surround yourself with a panel of sounding boards. How many times I call you about this, or I call you about that, or I call Rob, or when I used to be able to relate Carmelo Bosco or Charlie. And Charlie was an interesting guy. I know there's some people that sometimes make statements. Why do experts still refer to Charlie Francis? And they kind of say it in a negative way. And I say, if you spent time with Charlie Francis or any of the people I met and you didn't learn anything, you either didn't spend much time or you're not very bright. And and anybody that criticizes someone that no longer can defend themselves is a coward. And whoever hears that out there that replies to, so be it. But all these people, you wanted to learn to get faster, you went to a sprint coach. You wanted to learn to apply force other than just weights, I went to you. And when we were at Moreau High School, I don't know if you remember all this, I would call you up to the clinic, and I said, what if my guys jumped in between lifts? And I didn't have a name for it, and we did it. Now they call it complex training. And we did things like that, and I said, well, I see shot putters step off a box and throw the shot. And that was the benefit of being a track and field athlete in high school. So I said, well, if they do that to throw the shot, we'd step off benches and hit a bag.
That's right. Al, I've known you since your days as a high school coach in Hayward, California. And for those aspiring strength coaches out there, give us a little bit of an idea of the timeline. How long did it take you to go from being a high school coach to earning those world championship rings with the Chicago Bulls?
Well, it took me 11 years. I coached 10 years in high school, 4 at Castle Robles, 6 at Moreau, and 1 year as a graduate assistant at Kansas State. So it was 11 years before I went to 49ers and won the first one. And, we were 3-13, and obviously no one was predicting us to win the world champ. We were 6-10. And then, we got Jack Reynolds, and we got Fred Dean, and Joe came into his own, and Clark, and the team, and I don't think people had seen enough of the West Coast offense, and we went on to win the Super Bowl. And, so that's, it takes time. And it could take longer, it could take shorter. It just depends. And I was fortunate. Bill knew of me since I was a kid because he knew Dick, because Bill was a San Jose State graduate. And he actually used to come to Utah State at spring practice evaluating talent. And obviously he wasn't evaluating me, but he was evaluating other players like MacArthur Lane, who still lives in Oakland, Bill Staley, Roy Shivers, and Ron Sobrani, and a bunch of other guys we had on the team. So, that's a great opportunity. But once you get it, here's the key: getting the opportunity isn't as important as what you do with it, and you've got to be ready to continue and grow and adapt.
You do have some pretty good contacts with your brother Dick being a Super Bowl champion coach, so and many years at the NFL level, highly successful. So we know that there was a good line of communication between the two of you. So I consider you to be one of the great minds of strength and conditioning. Now, tell us in your words, how did you manage to accumulate the legendary knowledge base you have? Because I'm not the only one. The people I talk to talk about the tremendous knowledge that you have on all of these various aspects of strength and conditioning. How did you do that, Coach?
I'll go back to yours and Rob, my relationship with you and Rob. You were not only great coaches in your own right. I mean, all the jumpers you coached at Cal State and Hayward there, but you were great in sports medicine. Before I knew you were a jump coach, I just knew you were Dr. Chu. I thought you were a doctor, and my kids would go up there and you'd take care of them and bandage them up and get them back in the game. But I had great respect for sports medicine. I knew the field was changing, and you were one of the first with the sports medicine clinics. So again, I look at myself as a hub of a wheel. Okay, what did I need to know? I need to know sports medicine. Well, who do I go to? I went to you. Then you referred me to people like John Medeiros used to be. Then you referred me over to Rob. And so, okay, that was one spoke out there. Okay, I needed to know more about speed and power development. So you were part of that spoke with jumping. Speed was Charlie Francis. And then, okay, I needed to know more about Olympic weightlifting. Okay, there's all the, Dragomir Soroshin, the late Dick Smith, Carl Miller. And so then each aspect of strength and conditioning, recovery, there was Charlie Francis, who was really knowledgeable at how to use the electric stim. And that's one thing people don't appreciate enough. There's a lot to that thing. So if if you take the different aspects of all the things you need to know, then you try to find people like it's a hub of a wheel, and you get all these satellites feeding you information. And if you meet the people I did and you didn't learn anything, then like again, you weren't very smart or you weren't trying. So I think that's, and I don't know if I've learned. I just was a sponge to absorb up things, because when I look at an athlete, Mark Comerford, there's another brilliant guy, and Jeff Coverly out of Denver. Mark is out of Australia. I'd go and I'd ask him a question. Why? Boom. Okay. I spent time with the nerve glides. People talk, oh, I got a hamstring. And one of the things they don't know is how to glide the nerves, because especially after an injury, or your hamstring's length doesn't improve, they're tight, and you do nerve glides and it gets better, and people look at you. Well, that's a whole different facet. If you look at the kind of a triangle for sports medicine, you have the joints, you have the muscle, you have the nerve, and then you have the soft tissue, the tendons, the ligaments, the fascia. Well, you got to look and know which one to treat. So I've spent, in the last years, I've spent hundreds of hours in sports medicine and Panarello. His research on ACLs and rehabbing them. Because when I was with the Bulls, they were, people said, well, gee, should we do this? Should we do that? Gee, should we squat? And, so you go seek out people. Dr. Lutz was part of that study. And so I just think if I was curious, because I know what I didn't know. And I think what gets people in trouble is it's what they think they know, but they don't know. And I realized what I don't know. And
Beautiful.
I still don't.
Well, listen, let's talk a little bit about some specifics here. Of all the many different weightlifting exercises available, which do you consider the most fundamental and why?
All right. First one I would start off with, because we're talking fundamentals with after body weight, is Steve Javoric's complex. Those exercises, where he put them in a complex where you would do, 4 to 6 upright rows, and then you do 4 to 6 good mornings, 4 to 6 squat to press from the back, and then squat, and then 4 to 6 bent over rows, the lower number for taller people. So you put those exercises in a complex, and once they get to a certain level, like for an athlete, you would like to be 40% of your body weight to be able to handle a couple sets of 6 of those, or 4, depending on, and for female, 30 to 40, male, probably 40 to 50, depending on their height. Then you got to get them stronger. And I see so many people fooling around with 80 million exercises. And I was at a clinic in New York this week, and I said, is your heart different than the person born 100 years ago, or your muscles? I said, no. Humans all start the same and end the same. We're not a computer where next year you get the upgraded model, a new solid-state drive. So why is everybody reinventing the wheel when the wheel went around pretty good 50 years ago, and especially the last 20 or 30? So in terms of strength, I believe in some form of what I call a clean pull, snatch pull, or people call it deadlift. I believe in squats, front, back. If you're going to do single leg, I'm not really keen on that one, the Bulgarian one, which Spazov brought over. Because when you have that rear foot elevated, you get a big load, you're already anterior rotated one way and posterior the other. And it can create a lot of torquing. If I was going to do single leg work, the ones I like, I think a lunge is great. I think a split squat is good. I like the one where Dragonbear showed me this. When you really get proficient, you get up on a box where you step backwards and your back leg can't hit, and you get down and now you got to push back up. Now, for most people, you don't do it that extreme. You do them eccentrically, especially if you got patella. So I like that. I like pressing. I like the good old military and push press. I know a lot of people talk about the shoulder. Does your arm go overhead? Then you should be able to lift overhead. There's nothing wrong with inclines. I did way too much benching. But I like those. I like some type of pull-up. I like the inverted row. Just general strength exercise. You can throw some other little things in there, but the biggest one is pressing, squatting, and pulling. And then,
Al, how much do you think when you're doing something like Javoric's complex and you have 100% of time to teach people the routine, how much of the time, the actual percentage of time, is it that you spend teaching?
A lot. I spent a lot. We did. If it didn't look right, we kept doing it until it got right, and we didn't go heavy. And the problem with I don't know if you've had this experience in coaching. Sometimes you look at something, and your best guy becomes the standard. Well, your best guy isn't as good as someone who really does it better. And one day, Charles Poligan came in. He was another good guy, and so unfortunately passed away. Someone was doing an exercise, and he made a comment. I said, "Oh man, I've been looking at it too long. I missed it." So that's the other reason I brought people in, because they would see things I'd missed. But you've got to spend time teaching all those levels, especially when you go to the Olympics. If you're not going to be a technician, don't be a strength coach. Don't be a coach. And I think that's why kids are getting hurt today playing football. If they may regress to Monroe High School. Everybody's talking about change direction test and all these, we got to do all these. I counted up in the summertime with our 30-second station I got from Vince Gibson, with our jumps, catching the clean, and making them break down and move in. They were changing direction or getting into a hitting position 1,000 times or more. And then they did that every day at football practice, because every time you switched from drill to drill, you had to run, break down 5 yards, move in. Didn't do it right, went back. And then when we practiced scrimmage, I blow the whistle. Second whistle made all the defense had to be to the football, and they had to break down. And you made a comment, the kids were always in position. Well, you catch the cleans and snatches, that's triple flexion. You're changing all the line drills, box jumps, and all that. So I think the fundamentals are missing. I think people want to get way ahead of themselves. So you've got to be, if you're, and today I watch, no one knows how to tackle because they don't teach tackling. I guess you can't tackle anymore. I don't know. They throw a flag every time I watch the game. But so I think the fundamentals, and you've got to spend the time. I
Absolutely.
would look at freshmen in high school.
Al, strength and power are considered the most essential components of athletic performance. At what age should youngsters start this form of training?
I think they can start at a very young age with a stick to learn the movements. I think they can do the running drills, basically. I think they can do very basic jumps. I'm training my grandson. He's 12. And I have his baseball team was coming over, so now they're all playing basketball. And we would do some very basic jumps, but the first thing we worked on is how to land. Because until you can control your body eccentrically and land with your knees not going in and your back rounding and all the different things kids get on your toes or whatever it may be. So we just worked on sub-maximal. And that's the problem when people hear you speak. They see those great athletes you coached, and they do all those jumps, and people say, well, I'm going to go home and do that, and they don't see the preparation. So I think in the early years, 11, 12, 13, you do all the easy jumps, jump up in a box, and we actually have them take a 12-inch box and just step down and land. And once they get the landing real good, I'll have them land, pause, jump. All the jumps we do, if we do 3, which you would call 3 double leg bounds, we'll do 3, and I'll say pause. And when you've got yourself gathered, go again. Because until they get that right, and you think about basketball, football, baseball, if you can't get that right, that position, when you're moving and you have to stop, then you're fundamentally unsound.
Absolutely.
So,
Al, speed of movement is often thought of as a genetic trait. And what are your feelings about that? How do you think it is best developed and maintained? And we're talking speed of movement.
Well, first you lay all the foundations we talked about. You get some strength. You always have, this is Charlie Francis, always have some speed development in your program. It can be just the running drills. And people look at the mock drills, oh, those are easy. You watch someone really good do them, they're not that easy. And they really they teach the relaxation, and they teach ground reaction. And so you get them strong enough and powerful enough, and you've got to sprint. I think everybody's complicating that thing. Jesus, they will have 80 billion drills. Just get them. If they've got to be strong enough. If it, as Charlie says, if it looks right, it flies right. And so what I'm doing with my grandson, I'm teaching him the running drills. And to teach them to cock their toe up, I'll do them uphill a little bit. And I'll do some easy accelerations up a hill. And then what I do, because you don't want to have bad habits, I tell them I want you to gradually accelerate. I said, when you're changing and going faster, and you do that by moving your arms faster, not your legs. Arms control your legs, Charlie Francis, and he's absolutely right.
Absolutely. Key point.
You gradually, now the scientists won't say that, but you know what? I've not seen one scientist with a championship ring or a championship trophy. So when they win those, then they can come and tell me different. But you move your arms, and I said, over 40 yards, I don't want to see the change in speed. I want to see it so smooth. So it's not maximal. Once you can do that nice speed buildup and it's smooth, then you go into some nice accelerations. And using the medicine ball is another great tool young kids can do for power as well as strength. I think that's an excellent tool. With young kids, they now say for males you shouldn't load them about 6 months past peak height. And when I mean load them heavy. And girls about after peak height. The one advantage I had playing football, after the freshman year, those kids were, knew they weren't football players, so, their bodies were kind of ready to start training, but we never progressed them, only at an individual rate. We never had a team rate, or everybody had to have the same goal, because we're not all the same.
That's
when
right.
You're talking about speed, the critical thing is, especially if the kid doesn't have the great genetics, is getting to that early and getting that ground reaction that you teach and speed and learn to run relaxed and smooth, because for a male their first speed window is like 6 to 9 or someone said, and then it's right around puberty or in that age group. And for whatever you do, don't get them out pounding the streets wasting their time with aerobics. I mean, that's the biggest waste. I see people, I got my kids out running 3 miles. Well, good. He'll be the slowest halfback or the slowest power forward or the slowest first baseman or whatever he's going to be. The other thing, get him involved in track and field. And I'll regress a minute. The best thing that ever happened to me was my coach. We were playing baseball at PE. We used to practice baseball. I was a freshman. Mr. King was the track coach. He said, "Hey, Vermeil, you come over here." And Coach Ocker says, "You can beat those guys in the 75-yard dash." So I go, "When?" He said, "You're lifting weights?" He said, "Yeah, well, here, go throw the shot." 4 years later, I throw 54.9. Now, if I knew what I was doing, I'd have threw it further. But that's a whole other story. But the point being is that being in track and field, it gave me appreciation for people like you. Because when I was in football, a lot of people shied away from track and field. Because you had a more football personality. But a lot of track coaches it has a different personality because it's a different sport. But I think it broadened my horizons right there. So I think get them throwing the medicine ball, teach them to run correctly, go online and look at Jesse Owens in the 36 Olympics, and that'll show you how you should run. And you watch all those other guys, including Ralph Metcalf, they're all over the place, and Owens is smooth. That's why you got to teach rhythm.
Absolutely. Al, in all your years of experience working with professional and elite athletes, who impressed you the most and why?
Oh, boy, that's a loaded question. Yeah, that's really... starting with the 49ers, of course, we had some great guys. I mean, just a bunch of them. Dwayne Board would have been one of them, Randy Cross, all the offensive linemen. Wally Downing, and then, of course, Ronnie Lott. I just got him, I left about after a year he was there. Billy Ring worked really hard. Dwight Clark. All those guys came in and did something, and they were very, in terms of Lott would have to be one of the best. Ring was a heck of an athlete. Of course, today, if you're not 6'8", if you're not in football, you're not 6'4", 220, you're not a player. But I mean, if you watch his feet, he had such great feet, and that's what made him so effective. Plus, he had a great determination. I'm trying to think of anybody else. They were all, and with the Bulls, there was a cast of different characters in terms of athletic ability. Horace Grant, because he could do anything. I'd say, "Okay, Horace, we're going to go triple jump. Okay, here's kind of how you do it. You know how well I triple jump. It looks like a triple flop." And I said, here's what I want you to do. And he goes out 28 feet or something. Okay, I want you to do 5 bounds, which is, you do 5 bounds, it's 4 bounds and a jump. And, that's 48 or 50 feet, Okay, so you looked at him. He had a great engine. So all you had to do was give him some more horsepower, give him some more strength. So we basically did the 3 strength exercises. We power snatch, power clean, and push and jerk. He cleaned off the 6-inch blocks 300 pounds. He cleaned 275 off the floor at 6'9". Squatted 360 to just slightly below parallel. I mean, he could do, because his proportions. Scotty worked really hard. Scotty was great, but he had those long arms. And then you've got a guy like Billy Cartwright. We get him late in his career. What a great guy he was. He came in and worked so hard. And was he tough? I mean, he was, so Bill's a special guy. I mean, John Pax would be, Pax, he, and the guy that first bought in was Dave Corzine. And he really, I would have to say, saved me because he bought into it. And then Bill Cartwright came and talked to Dave, and he said, yeah, this will help you. So you always got to go back to the people that first bought in, and then as the other guys came around. And Pippen and Grant, a great story, and it's been told in exaggerations. But after we lost to Detroit in '90, within a week they were back in training, and Horace made 70 workouts that year, and Pitt made a bunch. Now you know how short the NBA off season is,
right?
And the team averaged 55. The team and Paxson and Cartwright had surgery. So those, people say, what'd you do to motivate them? I said, they wanted to win. I said, you don't motivate anybody. At Baroque High School, people say, how'd you motivate those kids? I said, I decided who got a uniform and who played. The rest was up to them. I said, you don't. I said, it's easy to motivate people that want to do it. I said, if your program's so lax and you let anybody that doesn't give a damn or won't pay a price, then you got to work on motivating them. But those kids at Monroe High School practice 4 times a day, and today I'd be fired. And of course, our 3-on-3 drill, I'd really be fired for that one. But that's another story. But the point is, if you've got kids making a commitment, and they would individually make a commitment, how many workouts they're going to make in the summer and the winter, depending on whether they play the sport. Well, there's no motivation necessary. But if you allow, and I think that's part of the problem in some professional teams, is if you don't have a good leader. Now, I did not train Michael Jordan. I'll never say that. But I'll tell you what, he set the standard. Him and Cartwright set the standard. And, Michael would come in and look at those guys, rookies in the training. What are you doing here? I'm an 8-9-year veteran, whatever. And you practice hard. You talk to Kerr, he'll tell you the same things. Steve was another guy that worked really hard for us, did a great job. And, they were just interesting. Tony Kukoc was a really good athlete. For a guy 6'10", he cleaned 110 from the hang at mid-shin, and I could have did more, but I never took guys to the max because I knew what it was. They weren't weightlifters. They didn't need to do that. And that's one thing when you take methods from other sports, whether it be your training, the boxes you use, your track and field athletes were elite track and field athletes. Even though basketball players are elite basketball players, they're still not elite in that vein. So you just modify everything. And I think that's where people get themselves in trouble. They squeeze out one more rep. Is that rep going to make a difference at the end of the season? Probably not. The key is to keep training year-round, in the season, and that's hard to do.
Absolutely. Al, your years of coaching must have led to many memories. What is the most memorable event and why?
Winning the first championship at Monroe High School when we beat St. Mary's in 1975. That's the greatest. I'll give you one other memory, but that's the greatest as a coach memory in my whole life, because I'd never been on a championship football team. In junior college we lost, and in high school we lost it, and then in college we were not in a conference, so we couldn't win a championship. So that was, as a coach, it was an accumulation of all those kids believing in me, because I went there, and today people would call me draconian, with my coaching methods, and it eliminated some kids. But the kids that stuck and stayed. After I told them in 3 years we're going to win. And boy, good Lord was looking out for me, and we did.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of those kids since then, and none of them have anything but love in their hearts for you, Coach.
Well, it's mutual. The other great experience was, and you have 4 children, which when my son was wasn't assistant, he was Jack's head strength coach, Jack Harbaugh, when they won the 1AA championship in 2002. And my wife and I got on the end of the got on the field at the end of the game, and we're there with Lance, and that will always stick out as one of my fondest memory of more than anything I ever accomplished. And you know that when your children accomplish something, nothing compares.
Nope, nothing compares.
Those kids in Moreau can take great pride in those championships I've got because they're part of them. Without them, they wouldn't be there.
Absolutely. Al, here's a term that we hear a lot about. It's called ground contact time. And people talk about it, and I'm never sure of what they mean and why it's an important concept to know about. Can you enlighten me a little bit on that?
Yeah, well, basically, it's how long your foot's on the ground in contact when you're running, moving, changing direction, whatever you're doing. And the people that spend less time on the ground are your better athletes. In other words, it's like a car. They have more horsepower, and they can put it into the surface and get it out faster. In other words, when you hear people run, they're light on their feet. It's because they're not on their feet that long. In other words, the time in the ground is for a world-class sprinter, when they're running at maximum speed, it's on the ground somewhere like 0.85. And so they're able to generate so much force in a short time. That's ground contact time. That's ground reaction forces. And the plyometric training has a lot to do with that, and sprinting. Those are the 2 ways you really get that. That's why you need to have speed in your program, at least some form of it all the time. And it's an inherent quality. Obviously, it's genetics, but it can be trained to a certain degree. And the biggest mistake, that's why I don't like people to go out and do jogging, because your foot's on the ground. You can have a sandwich in between each step. That's why you don't want kids to do that stuff. Jump and rope. I tell you, one of the best things these kids do is do double Dutch, do double under. If you see the inner city kids, especially the girls, jumping those ropes like that, that is one of the best things you can do.
Absolutely.
Because that develops that ground reaction time. In other words, you see minimum flex of the legs, and they're like a spring. I'll tell you, the other thing kids ought to do is get on a pogo stick. Because you're talking about, you hear about core stability. I get almost puke. I'm so tired of hearing about it. But you get on a pogo stick, you're developing some spring and core stability. The other thing I always tell people, I said, go home and get on a bicycle and see how many of you can ride a bicycle with no hands. And they look, what? I said, well, that was the physio ball before there was a physio ball.
Absolutely. I love that
There's
analogy.
Nothing new out there. I always tell them there's nothing new. And I said, if you think it is, it's just because you haven't learned it. It's been there, and as Bob Aleo said, tell me what it is, and I'll tell you what we used to call it.
Good. Hey, listen, there are a lot of young people out there wanting to get into the field of strength and conditioning. What advice do you have for those who are aspiring to follow in your footsteps?
Well, first of all, go to a good school that has a good, and I kind of made a smart comment about sports science. I think sports science is very important. Go to a place that has a good program in sports science and has a good strength and conditioning program. And even if they're not going to pay you, you go to that strength coach and you spend time with them. You go to the track and field coach and you spend time with them. You watch. You ask questions. And if you don't understand it, keep asking. You'll annoy them, but I've annoyed a lot of people. So once you spend time with the different sports, and then when you graduate, go find some place that has a great program, especially that develops speed. Not just recruit it, but develop speed. If you can help develop speed, the rest is easy, because that's the hardest part. And Don, you already alluded to it. I tell people, I told someone the other day who was in the NFL, he said, "Well, I'm going to go." I said, "No, don't come back and see me. Go see Don Chu. I am not going to teach you I'm not going to tell you anything more. I don't have anything else. Go see Rob Panarella. If you want to get in football, if you can get Al Miller and Grumpy Al, if you could go see him, go see the guys that have spent 40, 50 years in this profession and have been around the block. The people to avoid are the people on the internet saying, I am the greatest. I am a genius. I am an expert. I did this.
Yeah, I feel the same way about those people who basically want to tell you, watch me exercise.
Yeah, and the thing is, someone quoted me, none of us made a great athlete that started with their mom and dad. And I said, and the last thing I tell you, if you want to have the opportunity that I've had, and you get to a certain level, go to a team that's going to win. It's like I tell coaches, this guy got the job in the Big Ten. Well, he's not going to beat these 4 schools, so he's going to be middle of the road in 5 years. 3 years, he's going to be gone. And, so you go to a school, but in learning, go around the country. Go around to the different coaches. Go find these people, and that's how you get in and read everything you can get. I'm still doing it. So, I've been at it a long time, but there's a lot of information out there, little things that are very valuable.
Al, I've watched you since you were a high school coach in Hayward, California, and I've watched you through all the years of your success, and I can say one thing: you have become much better at expressing yourself and much better at really putting your ideas forth. And I'll tell you what, anybody who wouldn't follow your advice is really missing the boat, Coach.
Well, I appreciate that. There's a lot of good people out there to learn from, and that's what I said. Be the sum of many, don't be the sum of one. Don't get locked into following one guy, and then he's your guru, and then if someone said something else, you're wrong. I see that, and some of these people promote that. And, you can learn from everybody. I didn't agree with everything, but what I did is looked at what they did, what could I apply? First, what could I teach? Before you put anything in, you first learn to do it right yourself. Now, when I was young, I could bound and do those things. But you first have to learn how to instruct it. Don't just take it off. I've spoken place, and a guy will call me next week. I already put this in. I'm going, oh my God, So first, learn to do it. The other thing is keep training yourself. I always tell young coaches, if you want to stay healthy, lift reasonable weights, do something explosive, and sprint twice a week. Because sprinting is the ultimate expression of plyometrics. It'll keep you moving. And because you see older people, and we're both at that age, when you lose the ability to absorb the ground and you lose the ability to move, you're going to be sitting. And once you start sitting too much, it isn't long before you're going to be laying out for eternity. So if you stay vertical, you got to sprint, you got to lift a little bit, squat. You don't have to be King Kong, but just keep doing something, and you'll keep learning.
Al, I'll tell you what, I want to thank you for this time you spent with us and giving us all of your advice and sage thoughts. Let's hope that you continue on for quite a few more years, Coach. We really appreciate you.
I hope so. You too. I look forward to seeing you.
All right. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.